Hello everybody, so today I'm going to be showing you my process of making pulled pork for dinner this one night. So here we have a 4-pound pork shoulder, and it costs $1.69 a pound, so the total was a little under $7. And that's a pretty good price if you think about it, just $7 of meat for 6 people. And my first step is going to actually be remove the skin from this pork shoulder. I think sometimes you get pork that comes with the skin, some doesn't. So here I'm just removing the skin, and it's actually going to take me some time because of how the shoulder is shaped, and it's kind of awkward. But here I'm just cutting the skin, and I don't want to cut into the meat here. It's not the end of the world if you do, but I just think it looks nicer. And the key here I'm just kind of peeling the skin back away and cutting in between where I can see where the fat and the meat connects with the skin. So I'm just cutting in between there, and like I said, I want some of this fat there because it'll help protect the meat when it's on the grill smoking. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this, and I'll get back to you when I get to the next step. Okay, so there's the skin removed. I'm just removing a little bit of extra fat. I don't want too much, but I definitely want some there. And I'm just giving a little inspection of the meat, putting the skin aside, washing my knife, washing my hands, and just a little more inspecting. And I'm actually going to grab some mustard here, and this is going to be my schmear. So basically in barbecue, some people use this, some people don't. It's personal preference, but I'm just slathering some mustard on. This will help the rub stick. And a lot of people use different things. Some people use mustard, some people use like water, some people use oil, some people use Worcestershire sauce. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't really put too much flavor on the meat. It's more just to help the rub stick. And the rub I'm using is I'm just using the rub that I used for my turkey video. I had some leftovers, so I decided to use it. Just clear up some space in the pantry. So you notice for rub, they usually don't recommend you to actually rub it in, contrary to the name. If you rub it in, it doesn't really give you a good even coating. You kind of just want to sprinkle it on and pat it in. Because when you start to rub it around, you just kind of push it around, and you have some parts where it's like caked on more than the others. And yeah, I'm just going to set that aside for 1 hour or so. Kind of let the spices soak in, and then I'm going to go ahead and prepare the grill. So earlier you could see I just had some wood chunks and some old coals at the bottom of my grill, and here I'm just heating up half a chimney of charcoal. And a trick I learned from videos is that you can actually light charcoal on the side of your grill burner if you have one of these little burners on the side, and it's a lot easier than using charcoal starters. And once those are hot, I'm just going to evenly disperse them on both sides of the grill, and in the middle you kind of see I have a metal drip pan, which is just going to collect the grease and kind of make cleanup easier later on. So yep, just making sure the coals are even, and I'm going to put the grate on, cover it with the lid, and once I put it on the lid, I'm just going to adjust the vents, try to get to the right temperature. And for this cook, I'm aiming around, I think, 375, 400, and once it reaches that temperature, I'll put the meat in. So here we're at 375, and I'm going to put the meat in. And I forgot to mention, but the method I'm using here is not low and slow, it's hot and fast. So low and slow cooking, you typically see temperature ranges around 225 to 275. And for hot and fast, you typically see 375 to 400, at least initially. So the goal for hot and fast is that you start off at a really high temperature. You want to get as much smoke flavor as fast as possible and set the bark. So the bark is basically the outside crust. And yeah, the goal is to do that as fast as possible. And once you achieve that, you wrap it up and put it back in at a lower temperature, and this will kind of help break down the meat and get it nice and tender. So the first step is not that, but every 30 minutes I'm going to go ahead and I'm spritzing it with water. This is all to help improve the smoke flavor and to set that bark. So just going around making sure I moisten it like extremely well. And I'm not going to show all of it, but I actually did this about 3 times. I think it took me around an hour and a half to 2 hours to set the bark. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, you just missed it every 30 minutes, and once that bark is set, you can go ahead and wrap it. And in the next step, you're going to actually see me do that here. So here I am like 2 hours in, and I'm just going to go ahead, remove it, and I can tell it's ready, but I'll show you me checking the bark. So here I'm just doing the scratch test where you just kind of poke at the outside bark, and if you don't see the seasonings move around, you don't push it around, then that's kind of good to go. So here I'm just kind of curious, I'm just checking the internal temperature. I'm just starting out with barbecue, so I'm still new, but I don't really ever go by temperature because that's kind of like a pain in the butt to me. And I'm just curious to see what the temperature is. It's around 145, and you can see I'm being very thorough, I guess, with my scratch test. And yeah, so I'm just gonna move over here to the table, and I'm gonna wrap it. So here I'm just showing you tin foil has a shiny side and a dull side. So people say that, oh, the shiny side reflects heat and the dull side doesn't. I'm not sure how proven that is, but I want to make sure the shiny side is inside, so it kind of reflects that heat back into itself, in theory. So I just wrapped it there, and it's ready for the oven. So once you wrap it, there's no real reason that you want to still cook it on the grill or the smoker, because you're not really going to get much more smoke flavor once it's wrapped, because how are you? So here I'm putting it in the oven at a lower temperature at 275. So like I mentioned earlier, hot and fast, you put it in at a high temperature and then you lower it down later after you wrap it. And the total cook time here was about only 4 to 5 hours, which is very short compared to low and slow, which can take 9 to 10 hours, not even accounting for rest. So I have a thermometer here just to monitor the internal temperature. Like I said, I mainly go for feel as opposed to temperature, but I was kind of curious since I'm really new to barbecue. And I'm just kind of poking it with this other thermometer and just seeing how tender it is. So in tough cuts of meat, usually barbecue is done to obviously make it more tender. So the reason that meat is tough is because those cuts usually have a lot of collagen, which is kind of the connective tissue in meat. So this connective tissue is obviously was what makes it like tough and rubbery. So this collagen starts to break down at around 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and when you cook it slow, this collagen converts into gelatin, and that's when it really gets like tender, pull, fall off the bone, that kind of stage. And here I'm just unwrapping it, and I want to make sure double check, make sure everything's probing tender. But once you get it tender, you don't want to leave it wrapped because it's definitely going to overcook. Because once you pull anything out of the oven, or once you're done cooking anything, there's going to be some residual heat, and the temperature of the internal temperature is going to rise, and you don't want it to kind of go any more and dry out the meat. So just double checking with a thermometer or a toothpick or anything like that. And what you want to aim for is actually like a good way to test to know what to feel like is what I taught is you get a jar of peanut butter and you put like a skewer, your thermometer, anything in, and if it feels like you're pushing through a jar of peanut butter, that's when it's at the right tenderness. So while I was monitoring the temperature, people always say for barbecue you want to go about like 90% 90% feel, 10% temperature. So after letting it cool down a bit, I actually wrapped it back up and put it in a cooler just to keep it warm. And you want to rest it for at least an hour. And this makes sure helps you make sure you retain all the juices. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull this. And it's a little tougher than I initially thought. I'm not sure if it was necessary because of the bone structure was weird. But usually they say the bones want to come out clean. These didn't come out super clean. I think I could have like let it go a little bit longer. But whatever, it was still good. So just make sure I'm picking off the meat off the bones. Whatever's left on there, I'm gonna feed to my copper, my dog. And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and shred this up. And like I said, this was a little harder than I thought. I think it's a lot easier to pull when it's a bit hotter. I think I might have let it rest a little bit too long, at least in the sense where I left it. At least in the sense where it was harder to pull. And you kind of see that pinkish color of the meat. That's the smoke that you can see and that imparted its flavor. There's some sort of chemical reaction. I might talk more about it in another video, but there's something about the nitrogen that really makes it pink in the wood that you smoke. And yeah, it's just pretty crazy how fast you can do it with this method as opposed to low and slow. And you get a pretty good product. I think it's honestly equal to whatever I've bought in the store. I don't think, at least in my area, there's ever really good barbecue. I'm really excited. I want to try it in Texas or one of those places to see what real barbecue is like. But in terms of kind of like the general stores around here, I think this is equal to the quality and much cheaper. I remember I had pulled pork in New York at this one place, and this is probably honestly just as good. And at the other place, I waited so long, paid so much, and it wasn't really a great experience. But here I'm just having my mom help pull it, and we're going to be making sandwiches, which I'll show you. I'll cut to that now and show you the sandwiches that I had with a little bit of coleslaw, some barbecue sauce, and it was really good. So here we are. There's the final product. I think in the future, I think for my grill, the way my smoker cooks, I think 375, 400 is a little too high. So I'm going to try to dial back the temperature a bit, maybe extend that initial cook time, and just really learn. I think barbecue's really, it seems simple on the outside, but it gets really difficult once you actually get down to doing it. There's lots of little different like nuances and a lot of different tips and tricks that you can do to improve your product. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.